This is AgGrad Live,
We have all of the different segments within the cotton.
the show that explores what it's really like to work in the ag industry,
So making sure that we get policy and regulatory issues
straight from the people who live it every day. All right, we're back with another career spotlight for AgGrad Live. Thank you for the positive feedback from the first two that we've done. We had John Stewart, who does government affairs with the Animal Feed Industry Association. Then we had Joel Mackey, ag attorney, last week. And we're back with another career spotlight. I'm really enjoying these. I am excited about today's because it's somebody who was on the other side of the table, meaning a college student not too many years ago now, and has found now a profession that he really enjoys, getting to do things that he really loves. And that's what this show is all about. I can remember when I graduated from college feeling like I'd been exposed to a lot of people in the industry, but didn't really get to see a lot of career paths. So excited to bring on today Tyler Cockrum, who he is a feed sales and technical representative for Cargill Feed Nutrition. So let me bring you on here, Tyler. Welcome to the show, sir.
I appreciate you having me.
Well, this is exciting because I think that there is a lot of misinformation out there, especially among college students, about what is it like to be in feed sales and what is it like to be a salesman. So maybe just before we dive too deep into that, could you tell us for your personal story about how did you stumble upon this career path?
Actually, right out of college, I started working for JBS Five Rivers in a commercial feed yard in Dalhart, Texas. And had gone back to Mississippi State for Super Bulldog weekend. And on my way home, I got a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter, really nice lady, and she had a job description. Wasn't really looking for a change, but always open-minded. Anytime you have a chance to better yourself. So I spoke with her, and she actually didn't even know where I was originally from, which is Virginia. And as we talked more about the job, I found out it was with Southern States, who's based out of Richmond, Virginia. So the opportunity to come home was a great option, and to also still work in the animal livestock industry. And so I flew 2 24-hour flights for interviews and 2-week notice, and I was in the feed business.
Very cool. So let's go back before that. From Virginia, you're going back to Mississippi State, which is where you went to school. How did you decide on getting into the feed yard business? Like, what was the process when you're in college, wondering what you wanted to do with your life? Did you just think, man, I just want to feed cattle for the rest of my life?
I started to get a small passion for cattle in high school, working for a local producer. Family wasn't in the cattle business. But kind of piqued my interest, and as I went into college, looking at different options, I originally thought I wanted to do ag econ, and realized that that wasn't really the path I wanted to take. So I was in an HR class in I guess my junior year, and we had to apply. We just had to apply to an internship just for the experience of applying to something for HR, and I applied for an internship with the Hyatt Ranch in Hyattville, Wyoming. Didn't even think about it. And about 3 weeks later, I got a call and did an interview and ended up getting that internship. So I spent little over 3 months in Hyattville, Wyoming, on a commercial cow-calf ranch. And that really, stirred my interest for the cattle business. And then had a friend that interned with JBS and really enjoyed that experience. That same summer that I was in Wyoming. And then in a commercial, beef cattle class in college, our producer gave us a list of the top 10 feed yards or cattle feeding companies in the country. And I just went and applied to all of them and said, this is what I want to do. And we're going to make the effort. And actually ended up all the applications. I never heard anything back, but actually met a JBS recruiter and kind of went from there.
So you met the recruiter independently from filling out all those applications?
Yep. He actually came and spoke at one of our classes at Mississippi State. And that's how I made that connection.
That's cool. I love that. We just did a post for AgGrad about, if you're just applying for jobs and not getting anywhere, what other things can you do? And events was one of them. And I think that's a fantastic example. I didn't even know you were going to share that. But I do think, Tyler, yours is a success story of somebody who is willing to physically move, to get out of their comfort zone. Because here you are, you're back in Virginia, where you're from. But do you think you would be there if you had never left Virginia to begin with?
Oh, absolutely not. And if I would have ended back in Virginia, it wouldn't have been doing, what I was passionate about. So I just kind of tell everybody I made a big circle to come home. So.
And I think that's what I get a lot from young people coming out of college is they know that's where they want to live for the rest of their life, so they're unwilling to move anywhere, even in the interim. And I think it's a big mistake, and you miss out on opportunities. So you went to Wyoming for an internship, and then with JBS you were in West Texas, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then now back in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, talk to us about the sales part of things. What do you like about sales, and how is it different from what you thought sales was before?
Probably the part that I enjoy the most about sales is the competition. I'm a very competitive person. So, going out there and trying to beat the competitor every day is probably the part I enjoy the most. The other part that I really enjoy is it's almost like, and I'm sure it's not like this with every sales position, but I have an awesome boss, and he kind of lets us run our territories, puts a lot of trust in us. And it's almost like running your own business. So, getting to make decisions, marketing plans, things like that. It's really neat because, you get to take a lot of responsibility and there's also there can also be a lot of negatives to that. But almost getting to run your own business is kind of the cool part.
Yeah. Tell everybody kind of how autonomous you are, because in your position, you kind of are like out on the road every day, aren't you?
Yep. So I cover part of Virginia, most of West Virginia, and the western half of Maryland. So I'm a road warrior, a lot of windshield time, do about 1,000 miles a week, pretty close. And all that is working wholesale accounts, working producers, and, kind of making a route at the beginning of the week. And one thing you'll learn early in sales is don't make any firm commitments, because whether it's weather or meetings canceled, things like that, you always have to be ready for change and willing to adapt.
Yeah, I think I'm picking up some sort of knocking. You got?
Yeah, it's the hotel I'm staying in. Is I think they're doing some construction.
I got my dog barking in the background. You got construction, but we're going to power through, right? You have to adapt to change, just like
absolutely.
So 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles a week, driving around, seeing folks. Who are your customers primarily?
So the neat thing with my position is I get to work with the wholesale dealers, which within my business is Southern States company-owned stores, Southern States member cooperatives, and then we also have independent co-ops and independent dealers. So I work with those accounts, help them market feed, but then I also am a resource to them with the end user. So I do spend time on farms meeting with producers and kind of growing their business, I guess, in almost in a grassroots kind of fashion. But that's the neat part of getting to work with the wholesale as well as with the end user.
Great. And now for people who are confused, I introduced you as being with Cargill Feed Nutrition, and you just said Southern States. So talk to us about that.
Yep. So I guess it was about 3 weeks ago now, Southern States sold their animal feed business, which consisted of 7 feed mills as well as the people and the branded feeds to Cargill Feed and Nutrition. So we are now part of Cargill, but we are still manufacturing and I'm still selling the same products to the same people. We just have a different backer now for the most part. But we're really excited about being able to leverage the resources that Cargill has to really help our producers.
Cool. And I was talking to somebody today, Tyler, who actually said something that's very relevant to this conversation. They said, well, I don't think I want a sales role right out of college, because if you're in sales, you're expected to be an expert. Like, people are looking to you for advice and you have to know everything. And I just feel like I need to go learn something before I can act like an expert. How have you handled that part of things?
I definitely agree. I think having some, I guess the term real life experience helps, because you can leverage that when you're in conversations with dealers or stores and things like that. When I was at Mississippi State, I worked at the dairy. So when I go call on a dairy farm, I can kind of draw off of that experience. Cow-calf, I can draw from that experience in Wyoming. And in West Virginia, we work with a lot of farmers that background and feed cattle. And, just being able to say the word JBS, kind of gets people's attention and gives you a little more credibility.
Because you had worked for JBS before, they understand that you've been on their side of things.
Correct. Yeah.
Very cool. What's the most challenging thing about your job, you think?
Probably, the hardest part about sales is, and especially the feed business, is there's so many things that have to go right before the customer actually gets the product. And when you're in sales, you're the face of the feed company. So whether the guy at the mill, didn't seal a bag right, or a batch wasn't mixed right, or something like that, it's you that the customer is upset with. So being able to handle that is really important, and it can get tolling sometimes. I mean, customers, they have an expectation, and it needs to be met. But that's a really important thing for people to realize in sales is you represent the product. So anything that goes wrong between them getting it and the producer using it, that falls on you.
Right. Yeah. And I bet you probably feel personally responsible when something.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about this business is, probably 90% of the guys I work with, it's a personally owned business. So, I'm there to try and help them make their business more profitable. And so that's the neat part, but it's also the hard part as well.
That's really interesting. And for those, I know we've got a small group here tuning in live. If you have any questions about feed sales or about what Tyler does at all, please feel free to type a question in the comments. We'll make sure that we ask him and put him on the spot. He's given us full permission to ask him whatever we want. So about the technical part of your job, because you're also not only feed sales but also technical representative. Where does that part come in, and how did you receive training on how to address the technical aspects of what you sell?
Yep. So when we were still with Southern States, we did some sales training, along with, we have a program called Feedmaster, which there's two different levels. And Southern States is big in ARPS certification, which is the American Registry of Professional Animal Scientists. And so did a lot of studying to get that certification. But through those classes, they talk not only about the feed products, but ruminant nutrition, small animal nutrition. So got to learn a lot that way, and also a lot of on-the-job training. Had a lot of cool producers that were willing to spend some time with me and teach me about their operations, and kind of mixing that with what I learned in college and the experiences I've had. It's been really great.
Do you have to do any cold calling or showing up at a customer for the first time? I know that's always a source of nervousness around sales positions.
Absolutely. I mean, cold calling is that's what we're here for. And at first it can be kind of nerve wracking, but once you kind of once you hit your groove, once you get comfortable, I find enjoyment in it. What I always tell people, is if nobody said no, there'd be no reason for me. I wouldn't have a job. So, fearing no, after the first couple months, that was something I didn't worry about, because they can say no and you can go on to the next farm and come back 6 months later and you might get a yes out. So.
Now, you just said come back 6 months later. So is your cold calling actually picking up the phone and saying, "Hi, I'm Tyler," or is it like, hey, driving by, cattle feeder XYZ and pulling in and, getting out of your truck and showing up on the doorstep?
It's a little bit of both. I make some phone calls, but a lot of my cold calls are just, I'm driving along to a customer or a store and see a farm lane and just turn down it and, see what you can find. The cool thing about Southern States is they're involved in the agronomics and everything. So you can kind of use that as your way in the door, no matter what farm you're going on. But yeah, I call people as well as just, turning down farm lanes.
What's the career path look like for you? I mean, if you feel like you've established yourself, got a good territory, good set of customers, and you're making your sales, I imagine you probably got goals every year and you're hitting your goals, and you feel like you're just ready for the next level. What's that career track look like for you?
There's kind of several different ways you can go in the feed business. You could go into, a sales manager type role where you're managing a group of salespeople, kind of like what my boss does. You can go into more of a specialized role, so you could become, a beef cattle specialist or a swine specialist or a poultry specialist, and kind of be more support, technical support for the folks like me in the field. But you can also go towards, the grains and ingredients side, where you're procuring grains for the feed mill. Really the possibilities are endless, and you're still kind of in a sales role, but not as hands-on as I am now.
Yeah, one thing I tell people if they're kind of confused in which direction to go with their career is find one where you're going to get to meet a lot of other people, like build your network. And sales is an obvious one for this. I'm sure you're meeting new people, weekly. Talk to me about the life on the road. I mean, does it get lonely? 1,000 miles a week is a lot to drive. I'm sure you're listening to the Future of Agriculture podcast. And when this gets turned into a podcast, you'll be listening to it too, but you don't need to go there. But tell us about life on the road and your thoughts on that. What's that look like practically speaking for you?
I mean, most mornings I wake up and I'm out of the house by 7:30 at the latest. I have some local accounts, but most are 2-3 hour drive. And I try to plan my week so I don't end up doing what we call the star pattern. Even though most weeks sometimes you can't avoid that. But just hit the road. Do it now.
What's the star pattern?
Oh, when you're say I might go to southwest Virginia one day, and then I get a feed complaint or a meeting request or something like that, and I've got to go to Frederick, Maryland, which complete opposite directions. And sometimes those are things you just can't avoid. But it's part of what we do. But I thoroughly enjoy the time on the road. For some people, they don't like the alone time in the truck or eating dinner by themselves. That was probably the hardest part, is you kind of feel weird eating supper by yourself on the road. But you get used to it. But yeah, talking about podcasts are probably my saving grace. That and Apple Music have been a big part of what keep me entertained when I'm behind the wheel.
Cool. And of course, I was joking earlier, but we really are going to make a podcast when we get 10 episodes in of these career spotlights. We're going to go ahead and turn them into a podcast series and release them on their own. Actually have a question here from Josie. And Josie's question is, how is your work-life balance with all the travel? How do you balance that? Really,
I probably should have added that. That's probably the hardest part of sales. Because with today's technology and phones, you're really never off. You're always working. And the biggest thing is just, setting boundaries. There are things that come up on the weekends or 8 o'clock at night where it might be an emergency and you need to answer the phone. But most customers are understanding. They have families as well. They have personal lives, and they respect that. But it's definitely a challenge, and it takes a while to figure it out. When I first started, I all but burned myself out. But then you kind of figure out how to work more efficiently, how to be more productive, and that just frees up more time. But on the same hand, with sales, you get flexibility that you don't get in any other career path.
Cool. Thank you, Josie, for the question there. For you, as far as your own development, I know you mentioned the learning the technical aspects of the product, but what about personal development? Are there opportunities for that outside of college, or do you really just kind of need to learn everything you can before you get your job?
Oh, absolutely. So we attend a lot of conferences. There's some months where it feels like that's all we do, but we go to dairy, we go to the Virginia Dairy Conference. We go to cattlemen's meetings. They hold cattlemen's meetings in all 3 of the states I work in. In the past, we've gone to NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, every year, and they do really great cattlemen's workshops, and you can pick up some things there. But really, the biggest thing is within the southern states, what we call ourselves legacy southern states, is there's a lot of guys that are 20+ year guys in the feed business, and just being able to pick up the phone and ask them questions, because there's about a 90-95% chance they've run into that same situation. And that's probably where I've learned the most in this business is from my coworkers.
One more question on the sales side of things. So I know some people's resistance to sales, they feel like they have to be pushy or they have to kind of be inauthentic, like not themselves, in order to hit their numbers and do a good job. How have you kind of reconciled that, and how do you view that?
So when I go visit a producer, I work with a store, is trying to make them more profitable. And anytime you can show somebody where you pay this much for a product and you get this much return, that's where I see I'm the most successful in sales. Because when I go to a farm, I don't just go push a product, say, hey, you need to buy this, because you spend time with them, and a lot of it's relationship building. I might not even push a product until the second or third farm call, because so much of what we do in agriculture is relationship based.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. What's one thing, Tyler? I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. What's one thing if you could go back and prepare yourself better in college, one thing you would do if you can go back and prepare for this job?
I probably would have kept more interest in the agribusiness side. Just, I have a basic knowledge. I took 2 years of ag business, but probably would have stuck with that a little more. Because we're talking about, working with producers on profitability, and I do some ration balancing and projections and things like that. And there's some times where, I go into an Excel spreadsheet and think I have to really stop and think, or Google how to, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Where if I'd have paid a little more attention with that, or stuck that out a little longer, that it would have definitely benefited me. So the economic side, I would definitely recommend, getting as many economics as possible.
Great. Well, Tyler, this has been great. I think I love getting someone like you who's just recently graduated, already on a fantastic career trajectory in a job that is very much. There are openings for this type of job with companies around the country. So would encourage everyone who's tuning in to consider a job like this. And how might they reach out to you if they want more information from you directly?
You can reach me by phone. My phone number is 540-336-1980. I talk on the phone for a living, so I'd be glad to talk you through anything you have. You can email me. My email is Tyler, TYLER _Cockrum, COCKERHAM @cargill.com. And those are the best two ways to reach me.
All right. Well, we will also put that in the comments right underneath, so you can have that, because I couldn't type fast enough to put it on the screen here. But hey, Tyler, I really appreciate you taking time. I know you're on the road today, as you usually are, but taking time for us and sharing this. And I think this will really get a lot of people second guessing a decision to maybe pursue a career like this in a good way. So I really appreciate your time. And for those of you tuning in, we would love for you to go create a profile on aggrad.com, actually jobs.aggrad.com. There's 2 G's in there. And we will keep in touch with you about future career spotlights if you're exploring your options in the industry of agriculture. So Tyler, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. And thanks all of you who tuned in live. We will be back next week with another career spotlight.
Thank you for joining AgGrad Live. Visit aggrad.com, that's AGGRAD, to join the community, create your profile, and learn more about careers in the agriculture industry.